Welcome to another episode of G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are diving deep into a story that perfectly illustrates the strange and shifting reality of our modern world. It is a narrative that begins in the cool, slate-gray waters of Sendai Bay in northeastern Japan. But to understand it, we have to travel back to the feudal history of the samurai, zoom in to the microscopic level of DNA sequencing, and zoom out to the global scale of climate change. This is the story of a creature that has drifted out of the scientific unknown and onto the sandy shores of the Anthropocene. We are talking about Physalia Mikazuki, the samurai jellyfish. To appreciate the magnitude of this discovery, we have to look at the setting. The location is Gamo Beach in Miyagi Prefecture. Historically, the waters here are temperate. They are governed by a massive oceanographic battleground, where the cold Oyashio current flows down from the Arctic and clashes with the warm Kuroshio current moving up from the south. For centuries, this cold barrier has dictated the marine life of the region, keeping tropical species at bay. But the ocean we know today is running a fever. In July of 2024, as the summer heat began to settle over the Tohoku region, the invisible thermal barriers that separate ecological zones were breaking down. Enter Yoshiki Ochiai, a doctoral student at Tohoku University. He was on Gamo Beach that day for an entirely different research project, scanning the shoreline, perhaps looking for crustaceans or sediment samples. But then, something caught his eye. It was a flash of iridescent electric cobalt blue, a color that simply does not belong in the muted, earthy palette of a northern Japanese beach. Lying stranded on the tide line was a creature that looked like a deflated balloon, trailing long, tangled blue threads. To the untrained eye, it was just a jellyfish. To a marine biologist, however, it was a siphonophore, specifically a Physalia, commonly known as a Portuguese Man-o-War. Now, finding a man-o-war this far north is an anomaly. These are sailors of the warm trade winds, creatures of the tropics and subtropics, not residents of the chilly waters of Sendai. The serendipity of science often rides on the back of mundane logistics. Ochiai didn't have a high-tech transport tank or a team of assistants on standby. He had a Ziploc bag and a scooter. In a moment that has now become part of the species' origin story, he scooped the gelatinous blue blob into the bag, hopped on his scooter, and buzzed back to the laboratory at Tohoku University. At the lab, led by Professor Cheryl Ames of the Graduate School of Agricultural Science and the Advanced Institute for Marine Ecosystem Change, the excitement quickly turned into a biological detective story. The specimen didn't quite fit. It didn't match the textbook description of the common Atlantic Portuguese Man-o-War, Physalia physalis, which has a massive float. Nor did it perfectly match the smaller Pacific species, Physalia utriculus, known as the blue bottle. It was something else entirely. First, author Chanakarn Youngstar and the team had to engage in the rigorous work of taxonomy, which is far more than just naming things. It is a high-stakes arena of genetic and morphological scrutiny. They had to prove this scooter specimen was new to science. Morphologically, they looked at the architecture of the colony. You see, a Portuguese Man-o-War is not a single animal. It is a colonial organism made up of specialized parts called zooids. Youngstar compared the specimen to centuries-old illustrations. She noted that the float, or pneumatophore, was smaller than its Atlantic cousin, reaching only about 72 millimeters compared to the 300 millimeter monsters of the Atlantic. But the shape was distinct, an asymmetrical triangular sail with a sharp curvature. The tentacles were arranged differently than known species, and the feeding polyps, the gastrozooids, had distally swollen balloon-like yellow tips. While the physical structure provided the clues, the DNA provided the verdict. The team sequenced specific gene regions, the 16 srRNA and the COI mitochondrial genes, which serve as the barcodes of life. When they ran these sequences against global databases, the results were conclusive. The DNA didn't match. It was a distinct genetic lineage. This wasn't a sudden mutant. The genetic markers suggested this species had likely existed for a long time, drifting in the Indo-Pacific, hiding in plain sight as a cryptic species until the warming currents pushed it into the hands of a curious student. With the science settled, the team faced the creative challenge of naming it. They could have gone with a dry, descriptive Latin name based on geography, but the creature's morphology suggested something more poetic. The float of this new species was characterized by a sharp, crescent-like curve. When the team looked at that blue, arched sail, it evoked a powerful image from the history of the very region where it was found. Sendai is the city of Date Masamune. To understand the weight of the name they chose, you have to understand Masamune. Born in 1567, he was one of the most feared and respected feudal lords of the Sengoku, or Warring States, period. He was known as the One-Eyed Dragon of Oshu, having lost his right eye to smallpox as a child. Masamune was a man of immense cultural refinement and legendary aesthetics. He wore a suit of black lacquered armor, dark as a moonless night. But the centerpiece was his helmet, or kabuto. Adorning the front of the helmet was a massive, asymmetrical golden crescent moon, a Mikazuki. This crescent moon was a symbol of his rising ambition. When enemies saw that golden crescent rising over the horizon, they knew the one-eyed dragon had arrived. The researchers saw a poetic parallel. This new Man-o-War, with its vibrant blue colors and distinct crescent-shaped float, was a natural conqueror of the currents, drifting north just as Masamune had expanded his domain. They named it Physalia Mikazuki. The name translates to third-day moon or crescent moon. By doing this, they anchored a drifting global biological phenomenon to a specific local culture, turning a venomous invader into a point of local pride, a biological emblem of the region's history. Now that we understand the name, let's look closer at the animal itself. As I mentioned, Physalia Mikazuki is a siphonophore, a floating city of genetically identical individuals working as one unit. Imagine if your stomach, your hands, and your reproductive organs were all separate animals fused together. That is a siphonophore. The most visible part, the crescent helmet, is the nematophore. It is a gas-filled bladder that sits on top of the water. In this species, it is a stunning, translucent blue-green, often with deep purple or violet hues along the crest. It glows like a jewel. The animal cannot swim. It acts as a sailboat, adjusting the angle of its sail to catch the wind. The bladder is filled with a mixture of gases including carbon monoxide generated by the animal's own metabolism to keep it inflated. Below this float hang the specialized teams. You have the gastrozoids, the eaters. In Physalia Mikazuki, these are elongated tubes with those distinctive yellow tips. When prey is caught, these polyps spread out, liquefying the fish or crustacean with enzymes and sharing the nutrients with the colony. Then you have the hunters, the dactylozoids, the tentacles. While the float is small, under 10 centimeters, the tentacles can extend for meters underwater, invisible nets drifting in the dark. They are lined with batteries of nematocysts, microscopic stinging cells. Upon contact, these cells fire a harpoon-like barb injected with neurotoxin. The speed of this firing is roughly 700 nanoseconds, one of the fastest mechanical events in nature, accelerating like a bullet. The venom is a complex cocktail of proteins and peptides, designed to paralyze fish instantly. For a human, a sting from the samurai jellyfish is rarely fatal, but it is intensely painful, described as a whiplash or a burn from a hot iron. This discovery has actually reignited the debate on treatment. For years, vinegar was the standard for box jellyfish, but for Physalia, it is controversial and can sometimes trigger more stinging cells to fire. The consensus for this species leans towards carefully removing tentacles and using hot water immersion to break down the protein-based toxins. The arrival of this venomous beauty is not just a curiosity, it is a message. The discovery of Physalia Mikazuki is inextricably linked to the global climate crisis. It is a biological indicator of the tropicalization of temperate oceans. The team at Tohoku University didn't just guess how it got there. They ran computer simulations using particle tracking models. They dropped virtual beach balls into a digital ocean and watched the currents. The results showed a clear highway of warm water transporting surface drifters from the southern coasts, past Tokyo, and directly into Sendai Bay. The Kuroshio Current, the Black Stream, is becoming more energetic and unstable due to ocean warming, extending its warm fingers further north than before. This means Physalia Mikazuki is likely just the vanguard. Tropical fish, corals, and other invertebrates are moving poleward, reshaping the ecosystem. This poses risks to the native fisheries of Tohoku, famous for cold water species like oysters and salmon. If the water is warm enough for the samurai jellyfish, it is warm enough to stress these native economies. So, what is the future for the samurai jellyfish? Scientists are now racing to profile its specific venom composition to see if it holds pharmaceutical potential. They are trying to map its life cycle to see if it is breeding in the north or just visiting. Culturally, the species is destined for stardom in Sendai, likely to become a fixture in aquariums and educational exhibits, using the legacy of Date Masamune to teach the public about ocean acidification and isotherm shifts. It is a triumph of modern science, connecting the microscopic precision of DNA analysis with the grand sweep of history and the urgent reality of climate change. As we stand on the shores of the Anthropocene, looking at these blue invaders, we are reminded that the ocean is a dynamic, living fluid that is constantly rewriting its own story. The samurai jellyfish has arrived, wearing its crescent helmet, a beautiful, venomous messenger, telling us that the world is on the move. As Date Masamune himself wrote in a poem, "Reaching for the moon, my sleeve is wet with the dew. Is the moon also crying? The ocean is changing, the moon-crested drifters are here, and the story of the samurai jellyfish has only just begun."